So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Bigelow Laboratory for Ocean Sciences. I'm Graham Shamil, the Executive Director here. It's a fantastic pleasure and privilege to welcome you this afternoon. Thank you for bringing the sunshine as well. Really appreciated. I'm very pleased to welcome a number of distinguished guests and visitors, particularly US State Senator Susan Collins. We will introduce these people as they come up, turn by turn. They all represent major stakeholders and supporters without whom none of us would be sitting here this afternoon. So it's a fantastic privilege and a great pleasure for me to welcome them. First off, Senator Collins.
Thank you very much, Graham. I am so delighted to be here today. I'm particularly delighted because on the way from the Portland airport, the traffic came to a dead halt on 295 due to a car fire. And we kept trying to make that debate, should we get off to go on Route 1? Will this clear up? But you notice I did make it on time. So it is wonderful to be here and to congratulate the leadership, the staff, and the supporters of Bigelow Laboratory on what is truly an outstanding accomplishment. It was a pleasure to be here just a little over 2 years ago for the groundbreaking. I remember trudging up the hill. Those of you who were there that day also remember that. And I had not worn the right footwear, and it was rather muddy. So today, even though I knew it was all finished, I took a more practical approach and left the high heels in the car. It's wonderful to see the finished building. The new Ocean Science and Education Campus is such a significant step forward in the Bigelow Laboratory's mission of advancing our understanding of marine ecosystems. And if you needed any inspiration for those of you working here, you have merely to look out the windows of the offices. What a fabulous view. As we celebrate this achievement, we also reflect with pride on the 38 years that have brought distinction to our state and invaluable knowledge to our world. Henry Bigelow would be proud that so much of the work that is done here is focused on the Gulf of Maine he so loved. He would be prouder still that his vision of oceanography as a mother science that embraces all disciplines has become a reality. When Drs. Charles and Clarice Jensch founded this institution 38 years ago, they named it in tribute to that great ocean science pioneer. During an illustrious career that spanned half a century, Dr. Charles Jensch took this crucial science from the deck of Henry Bigelow's schooner to NASA satellites in space. His recent passing is a great loss, but his life is an even greater inspiration. This new campus stands on a foundation of vision and commitment. Bigelow's mission incorporates acquiring knowledge with creating opportunity. This new campus will enhance the capacity for research, education, and technology development. From unlocking the potential of marine microbes for new products and medicines, to better understanding climate change and our ocean health, this expansion will advance knowledge, facilitate economic growth, and add new jobs in our state that are both high-paying and in high demand. It's particularly exciting to me to see the collaboration forged between Bigelow and Colby College, which is developing the next generation of oceanographers. I also love that there will be a program to bring science teachers here. Just think how inspiring that is going to be for them. And they'll go back to their classrooms renewed and reinvigorated. That is a wonderful partnership as well. This new campus was conceived nearly a decade ago under the skillful leadership of Sandy Sage and the Bigelow board members. And I remember many, many meetings about this vision. Throughout this time, board members have played a key role in advancing the lab's scientific capabilities. David Coit, Bob Healing, along with their other board members, such as my dear friend Dick Morrill, who's here today, deserve our thanks for devoting countless hours to making today a reality and for having the vision to see what could be done. As executive director, Graham is certainly adding to this strong legacy of leadership. The generous donors who have made this expansion possible come from all walks of life, but they are united by a commitment to moving this vital science and our great state of Maine ever forward. We would not be here today without the strong public-private partnership of the Consortium for Ocean Leadership, the Maine Technology Institute, the Department of Economic and Community Development, federal agencies, and the First Bank. The sustainable, low-impact design of this new center continues the lab's record of environmental stewardship. And I would like to commend the construction company, the designers, and the daughter of one of my staffers who is an engineer working on this project for their outstanding work. As a longtime advocate for Bigelow Lab, I was pleased to be able to secure the $1.5 million in federal funding to assist in the purchase of the land for this new campus. That was one of the first hurdles that we needed to surmount. I'm also delighted that the National Institute of Standards and Technology sought to help us out with a generous construction grant to take Bigelow's research and experimental capabilities to these exciting new heights. Henry Bigelow devoted his brilliant scientific mind to understanding what he felt in his soul, that all life is connected and that we humans must be its responsible stewards. That vision and your continuing efforts are helping us increase our understanding and meet that responsibility. Congratulations on this wonderful milestone, and I look forward to our continued work together. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Senator. That was wonderful. I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Stella Fiotes. Stella is the Chief Facilities Management Officer at the National Institute for Standards and Technology and our primary federal funder for the third wings behind me, the Center for Ocean Health. Stella.
Thank you, Graham. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Senator. I am extremely delighted to be here this afternoon on behalf of Acting Secretary Blank of the Department of Commerce and Dr. Pat Gallagher, Director of the National Institute of Standards and Technology, to help dedicate this great new research facility. We are very proud to have played a part in making it possible. As land dwellers, it's easy for most of us to forget that we live on an aquatic world, that our globe is mostly ocean. But that's the way it is, and the ocean ecosystems are extremely important to all of us, which means that laboratories like this one that seek to understand those ecologies are also very important to all of us. I imagine that is self-evident to most people here, and what you're probably wondering is, how does NIST come into all this? Well, although we're the nation's standards and a measurement laboratory, the oceans are not that strange to us. In fact, for the last several years, we've partnered with NOAA's National Ocean Service, the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources, the College of Charleston, and the Medical University of South Carolina in operating the Hollings Marine Laboratory in South Carolina. The Hollings Laboratory is a world-class research facility with a mission to provide science and biotechnology applications to sustain, protect, and restore coastal ecosystems. As an example, we've done a fair amount of work in looking at trace contaminants in marine mammals as a sort of mobile sensor of the health of coastal waters. We at NIST understand as well, or better than everyone, that science progresses in lockstep with our ability to measure things. And the students of oceans, the researchers who walk through this building, are at work in one of the great frontiers, one of the great challenges for measurement science today, the oceans. But today we're also celebrating more than just a new science facility, no matter how great the facility itself is. We are celebrating the public good that can be done with investments in science and technology. This is an excellent example of an investment in infrastructure, a public investment in infrastructure. In this case, the capability to conduct badly needed research on a valuable ecosystem. During its span, the NIST Research Construction Grant Program helped to fund either new construction or expansion at 24 research facilities across the country. The research fields we touched ran a gamut from green building design to quantum physics to earthquake simulation to nanoscale measurement to marine ecology. You had to be very good to get one of these grants. As I recall, in the competition that helped fund this center, we received more than 100 proposals, many of them excellent. Of those, we were able to fund just 5. You should be very proud being one of those 5, and congratulations on an excellent submission that led to this award. What all these projects have in common is the creation of modern, state-of-the-art laboratory space, practical research facilities to do the work of science. The overarching goal is to help the U.S. produce world-leading research in science and technology to advance our understanding of the world, economic growth, and the public good. I firmly believe this was money well spent. As I stand here today, looking at this beautiful facility, I'm more convinced of that than ever. Thank you for having me. Congratulations on your new facility, and good luck with all the great research. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Stella. The next speaker is Bob Martin. Bob is the Chief Executive Officer of Maine Technology Institute. When we first had the idea of moving to here, to East Boothbay, and to look for financial support to enable us to do this, the first opportunity was the people of Maine, through the R&D bond, the Maine Technology Asset Fund. And it was Maine Technology Institute that was instrumental in creating the peer review mechanism for the reviews that led to the successful funding that started us here at East Boothbay. So it's a great privilege to welcome Bob Martin.
Graham, thank you very much. Senator Collins, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the board and staff of the Maine Technology Institute, I am extremely proud and honored to be here today. Now, we've all heard of the Route 128 corridor and the Research Triangle Park and Silicon Valley. But I want you to imagine in your mind a map of the state of Maine, and I want you to draw a line from Bar Harbor, the home of Jackson Labs, which is focused on genetics research to prevent, treat, and cure human disease, over to Orono, the home of the University of Maine, with their Advanced Composites Lab, which was recently in the news with their floating turbine technology, and the Lab for Surface Science and Technology, and the WISE Lab for Toxicology, and then down to Franklin, to the Cooperative Center for Aquatic Research, and then on down to Gorham, the home of the University of Southern Maine with its engineering school, and then over to Portland, to the Gulf of Maine Research Institute, which is looking to catalyze solutions for ocean stewardship and economic growth in the Gulf of Maine bioregion. And then back here to Bigelow, here in East Boothbay. All of these institutions anchor what I call the Pine Cone Valley, the home of Maine innovation. Now you chuckle and you think I'm telling a joke, but I'm not. I mean, all of these institutions are engaged in research that has planetary impact, not just global, but the health of our planet, and these efforts are profound. And within the area that I've outlined, there are hundreds of groups and organizations and individuals who are pursuing advanced technologies, all funded through the Maine Technology Institute. Right now, MTI has $92 million under management in its portfolio of companies engaged in research, development, and commercializing technology in this Pine Cone Valley. Now, there are those who may see Maine at the bottom of some list, but when you look at the area of innovation, and particularly in terms of exploring our natural resources, Maine is very much at the top, with world-class institutions such as Bigelow that are advancing science in this area. And I would submit that when Steve Forbes is looking for his next bug, he ain't going to go to Utah. Our investors are the people of Maine, and they should be proud of Bigelow's accomplishment today and energized by the future of what their investments represent. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bob. Our third public funder for the campus was the National Science Foundation. Unfortunately, no one was able to be here today, but on behalf of the National Science Foundation, I'd like to thank them for the engaging with Bigelow Laboratory and helping us to construct the third wing, the Center for Ocean Biogeochemistry and Climate Change. I'd now like to turn to some of the stakeholders who've had the support of Bigelow over many years and have enabled us to develop some of the science and locate within the community that we find ourselves here. And I'd first like to welcome Dr. Robert Gagosian, President and Chief Executive Officer of the Consortium for Ocean Leadership. Bob.
Thank you, Graham. It's a real pleasure to be with Senator Collins and so many distinguished and honored guests on this very special day. What a setting, what a day. It's extraordinary. So thank you, whoever brought the sun. My first encounter with the Bigelow Lab was when it was just a vision. I was a young scientist at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, attending a symposium at Hui. And sitting next to me was a scientist who was clearly a very accomplished oceanographer. We began to talk at one of the breaks, and I asked him where he was from. He told me he was from Gloucester, Massachusetts, but he felt that for scientists to do their best work, that he and they needed to have a different venue, a private institution, where scientists were free and they could follow their ideas more easily. He told me about his vision and what his plans were for developing and accomplishing this vision. And of course, that person was Charlie Inch, and that year was 1972. The rest is history, and we're part of the continuing history here today. You know, life is all about change. The sea is always changing. Politics forms and is formed by change. Technology, by its very nature, enables change. And under the leadership of Graham Schimold and the Bigelow's Board of Trustees, along with Senator Collins, the National Institute for Standards and Technology, the National Science Foundation, and the many state and local people who are here today, the result of these many agents of change is this new, amazing campus, which is opening new frontiers of science. And I want to emphasize the word campus. It's not a facility, it's a campus. And a campus is where ideas are nourished. I know what it takes to build a campus, and let me tell you, Graham, he has a lot more here today, by the way, than I do, when I finished rebuilding the Quissett campus at Huey. So congratulations, Graham, for that. It is indeed a remarkable facility. I was wandering around all morning having a lot of fun, and I know that great things are going to be accomplished here. But you know, a building is bricks and mortar, much like our bodies are skin and bones. They are both vessels for something much more important. And while this campus has been engineered to maximize intellectual and scientific innovation and productivity, it is the scientists that are the heart and soul of this facility. So you, the scientists and the staff of this institution, will determine its success. I very much enjoyed talking with you this morning and seeing the excitement in your eyes for the opportunities that this new facility presents to you. I also want to make a few comments about Graham's leadership. His skills go beyond this peninsula and this state. He has been an invaluable member of the Consortium for Ocean Leadership. And this is despite the fact, or perhaps maybe it's because of it, that he comes from a small state and a small institution than many of the other ocean leadership members. He has been far more open-minded, forward-thinking, and novel in his approach to the future of oceanography. His desire to work closely with industry, to partner with local universities, is a great example of developing a new model for success. And believe me, while you may be looking at the DNA sequence in your laboratory, in Washington right now, we are dealing with something called a fiscal cliff. So now, more than ever, we need to make the case for science's impact on our economy, the jobs, products, revenue, and public benefits generated through innovation that Senator Collins talked about earlier. I believe this facility, fueled with your great passion, skill, and talents, will prove to be a great economic investment for the state and for the nation. So I look forward with excitement to watching you exercise your minds, flex this facility's muscles, and help lead our field through the 21st century. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Bob, and thank you for those words. George Gervais is the Commissioner for the Maine Department of Economic and Community Development. It's a great privilege to work closely with the state. As Bob said, although Maine is a small state, we have immense opportunities and potential, and George is leading us in that direction. George.
Thank you, Graham. So it's great to be here again. Can't get enough of this place. So on behalf of Governor LePage, I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate Bigelow Laboratory for opening this amazing campus to all of us today, and for helping to position Maine among the global leaders of research and innovation. For those who were here for the 2010 authentic groundbreaking, as Senator Collins called it, I think a special thanks is in order for literally paving a path for all of us to walk on to attend this event today. In paving a path you most certainly have done here, an innovative path with direct benefits to all of us in the form of discovery and opportunity. Opportunity with not only social benefit, but opportunity with ties to entrepreneurial activity that fosters collaboration with the private sector. Collaboration that has led to partnerships with major industry. Collaboration that has proven results. Results that have had a direct positive impact on Maine's economy already, like the discoveries that have led to commercialization and job creation at companies such as Fluid Imaging Technologies and Kennebec River Biosciences. So the LePage administration, and certainly all of us at the Department of Economic and Community Development, all have a laser focus on making it easier for research and development to find a smooth path to commercialization. And we certainly appreciate the efforts here at Bigelow Laboratory towards that result. Again, thank you to everyone here at Bigelow for this opportunity. We all look forward to seeing the great findings and innovative results that will surely come from all your efforts here. Thank you.
It's a great pleasure to welcome Christopher Johnson to the stage. Chris Johnson is our Maine State Senator for this district. Please, Chris.
I try to avoid putting that in front of me. I like looking at people. Hello, everyone. Bigelow Labs, the Boothbay region, and the state of Maine have something great to celebrate here today. And I'm very pleased to join all of you in that celebration. I see the opening of this building complex as a great opportunity for our economy and for good-paying jobs. It's a prime example of how smart investment in R&D, embracing innovation, and focusing on how to do things best, not just cheaply, is improving Maine's future. There's a great deal of the future and the past in this institution. I first learned about Bigelow Labs from a young scientist at an information booth at the Pemaquid Oyster Festival in Damariscotta. It was several years ago, and Brian Thompson told me then how he had participated as a high school student in Bigelow's Bloom program, a hands-on ocean science research experience working alongside professional researchers. That led him to a college degree and a return to Bigelow, pursuing his career as a marine scientist. For all the students like Brian involved in Bigelow's education programs over the last 22 years, for all the research helping us understand the 71% of our ocean, our planet that is ocean, and for all the employees and area businesses that now have a greater opportunity to succeed, this opening represents a brighter future. Biotechnology is developing in Maine, bringing with it the seeds of real economic growth on several levels. At Bigelow, first, there is the campus itself, which will provide more than 100 good-paying jobs. At Bigelow, there are not only the jobs here, but the jobs in the restaurants, stores, and other businesses, which will now have dependable, year-round clientele supporting the centers and workers living nearby. There are the related biotechnology cluster businesses in Maine, which have been mentioned already, like Fluid Imaging Technologies in Yarmouth, Kennebec River Biosciences in Richmond, and right here in the Center for Ocean Health, scientists will focus on experimental ecology of the ocean to diagnose its state and predict what might happen in the future. That's our hope. This is vital information for many Maine industries dependent upon the ocean resources for a living. And it's work important to all of us because we depend on the oxygen, the food chain, and the biodiversity of Earth's oceans. The capabilities and quality of such work at Bigelow have brought national and international scientific interest. This center will truly bring benefits far greater than the initial investment that produced it. And what of that initial investment? That investment came from an R&D bond passed by the legislature and approved by the voters. When people ask me, why are you such a vocal supporter of state R&D spending? Shouldn't that be left to the private sector? I tell them about Bigelow Labs. I tell them about the good jobs that pay roughly 30% more than the average Maine wage, and how such salaries are the norm for high-tech industries like this. I tell them about the local businesses that benefit from the center's presence. And I tell them about how government and the private sector working together made it happen. I'm sure you'll hear from others today about the private funding and series of grants that enabled this expansion of Bigelow Labs. I want to thank the people of Maine for approving past state R&D bonds which made this starting possible. I promise to continue supporting more such investments in a stronger Maine and to work putting an R&D bond before voters again soon, because we need to continue this kind of work. Lastly, I want to thank Graham and all the people of Bigelow Laboratories for their vision, their dedication to the Boothbay region, their strong involvement in education, and the tremendous amount of work they accomplished to achieve this opening today and define for us what the future will be. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Senator Johnson. State Representative Bruce McDonald is a regional representative in Augusta. Bruce has been a long-time supporter of the laboratory and also a major champion for R&D development. It's a great pleasure to welcome Bruce McDonald.
Thank you, Graham and Senator Collins and assembled guests. My name is Bruce McDonald. I represent this House District 61, so this great facility happens to be part of my constituency, and I couldn't be prouder to be here at this great facility at this great moment. And I'd like to add my voice in congratulations to the board, the management, the scientists, the staff of Bigelow Labs in successfully making the dramatic move from the good old, bad old days at McCowan Point to this breathtaking new facility here in my hometown of Boothbay. I would be remiss also in not congratulating the voters of our local towns and of the state for having the wisdom to support the bond issue some years ago that gave the initial impetus to this project. You've heard about this from a number of speakers. Despite the strong support shown for the bonds, which support efforts such as these that we see here today, there are some skeptics who ask, should the citizens of the state be asked to pay through bonds for the development of institutions such as Bigelow, or for the developments of other sectors such as energy or industries such as composite or information technology? To me, this is almost like asking whether or not the state should support public education. You would think that this is largely a settled question in our society, but it is not, and there are some voices that are skeptical of public investment in R&D of this sort, and some even question, I regret to say, the related premise of universal public education. For me, there should be no question in either case. The benefits of education and the benefits of R&D are both individual and societal, and they are closely related. R&D, the research and innovation, the kind of work that goes into a place like Bigelow, is in a way the apex of the work that we do to create an educated citizenry and thereby a strong and growing economy. Investments in education and in research and development go hand in hand and are critical to our economic growth, and perhaps even more importantly to our ability to solve the pressing problems of global warming and sustainable life on our planet. So to that end, Senator Johnson and I will introduce legislation in this session for an investment of something in the order of $50 million in R&D to be administered by MTI for the purposes of furthering the growth and development of institutions such as Bigelow Labs. I'm proud to say that I was in the 123rd legislature, I think it was. I sat on the Business Research and Economic Development Committee, out of which, under the able chairmanship of Nancy Smith, Representative Smith, who now heads up Grow Smart Maine and who's here in the audience, and under the able management of Betsy Beeman, who is the former executive director of MTI. This whole thing got started during that period of time. I'm hoping to be in this legislature when we reinfuse the impetus towards research and development of the sort that led us here and that will help us grow even further in the future. It will take your voices and ours in the legislature to get this to happen. I hope that as this kind of legislation moves forward, that you will work with us to make this happen. We can do it if we work together. I thank you. And
thank you very much indeed, Bruce. A lab like Bigelow depends crucially on our neighbours, our supporters in the town, the interrelationship with all the cross-section of society that we interact with. The town of Boothbay has been a champion of the development of Bigelow Laboratories for many years. Over a number of town managers, formerly John Anderson, and more recently Jim Cheusis, we've had fantastic support to enable us to establish this campus. So it's a great privilege to welcome Jim Cheusis.
Thank you very much for allowing the town of Boothbay to be part of this ceremony. So thank you and congratulations to Bigelow Labs, the board of directors, and Dr. Graham Shamil. And it's a privilege to speak after some of the best public speakers that we have in the state of Maine, because I'll tell you that I'm not. And I put some of my words down, but I really want to express how excited the town of Boothbay and the region is to participate with the funders, the integral role playing that we have from the state, the federal, the local level, private, public. It really is exciting to the town of Boothbay. And this is a historical moment for Bigelow Laboratories as well as the town of Boothbay. If some of our local residents that I see in the crowd saw that in our annual report last year, we featured the Bigelow Labs new building, Building 1, on our report, and now we're in Building 3. It really is truly exciting. The region has a strong relationship with Bigelow for quite a while, but the town of Boothbay's increased relationship with the expansion of Bigelow has been going on for nearly a decade. Most of the early work was theoretical and planning, contract zoning, and development, and working with Consigli on building these buildings. And most of the early work was really exciting to Bigelow and the town of Boothbay as a government. But I can tell you the increased excitement of Building 2 and Building 3, where you see more and more local workers being employed in Bigelow, and Bigelow becoming the town of Boothbay, and the town of Boothbay being part of Bigelow. This relationship is getting more real and more solid with every ceremony that we have in this area. Bigelow has been a strong community partner. You may have read in the local papers just recently that they finished the deed easements for the local trails. So this huge campus that used to be the playing grounds of the East Boothbay residents still is the playing ground of the East Boothbay residents, and we still get to enjoy this beautiful area with Bigelow. We're coexisting right here. It's really exciting. And Bigelow has been extremely hospitable. And in case they've invited us to this ceremony, and every time we turn around, we're looking at a new event that we get to celebrate with them. Bigelow Labs is expanding their scientific relationship with the world with the assistance of the state and federal representatives that we've had here today. And the town of Boothbay, and I see people that I relate with my other role in the Chamber of Commerce, are expanding the town of Boothbay and the Boothbay region as far as we can. And anybody that's traveled into this area from away has realized that it really is beautiful and a great place to vacation and a great place to stay. And we need to find real innovative ways to make sure that as Bigelow grows, that the people that come here to work end up being here to play and be here to stay. And that's exciting as well. So we have this really neat historical fishing community that is turned into a vacation destination that now is cutting edge in oceanic science. And every single day our missions become aligned, where Bigelow Labs and the town of Boothbay is trying to bring positive recognition to the Boothbay region and the town of Boothbay. And I really see our relationship evolving into one that you recognize, as it was spoken to earlier, like Jackson Labs in Bar Harbor, and Freeport and LL Bean, and that someday that the Bigelow organization is synonymous with local success as Boothbay is. And thank you very much. Congratulations to Bigelow. Thank you to our local, state, and federal representatives, and it's a privilege to be here and speak on the same platform as you.
Thank you very much indeed, Jim. So any big project is equally dependent on private funding as it is on the public funding. We've had tremendous support from our bankers, the First Bank, and it's a great pleasure to welcome Rick Elder, Senior Vice President for the First, to speak next. Rick.
Thank you, Graham. I'll echo Jim's comments. It's a real privilege to be standing up here speaking in front of you, and now that I'm looking back, I see how many of you there really are. Basically, I'm very pleased to be here today representing the First Bank Corp. As Graham mentioned, we've been the primary private lender supporting this wonderful project. The First has enjoyed a comprehensive banking relationship with Bigelow Laboratories since 1995, and I personally have had the pleasure of working with the folks at Bigelow since 1998. The bank has been a longtime supporter of the annual Keller Bloom program, which one of the speakers mentioned earlier. And each year we try to send a representative to the closing event, and we walk away amazed at the level of the skill and talent that the students bring to that program and the benefits that they get out of it. The First has been involved with Bigelow on this East Boothbay campus project from the very beginning, and I worked with Sandy Sage in kind of filling in some of the gaps of funding for the land acquisition back in 2003. The First has been committed to the Boothbay region since we opened our doors in our Boothbay Harbor branch in 1979. Likewise, Bigelow has been a long-term significant presence in the Boothbay region, providing meaningful employment opportunities and lending its world-class reputation to our local community. This project represents a very important economic development opportunity both locally and for the state of Maine. Given the First's ongoing commitment to the Boothbay region and its long-term relationship with Bigelow, we welcomed the opportunity to partner with the lab in financing this expansion project. The First relationship with Bigelow is an excellent example of a community bank lending money to support a deserving project despite the very challenging economic times that we've all faced in recent years. The bank's willingness to commit to a project of this magnitude is a testament to the long-term history that our two organizations have enjoyed, and it's a measure of the outstanding leadership and stewardship that is present here at Bigelow. Our experience with the lab is that when they tell you they're going to do something, they deliver upon it. And with this building phase now complete, this outstanding facility online and occupied, we have every confidence that Bigelow's ability to execute its vision will continue. To David Coit and the Board of Trustees, to Graham and the entire team at Bigelow, we salute you on this accomplishment, and we look forward to working with you for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Rick. The final partner in the development, or the recent developments of Bigelow's history, is Colby College. It's a great pleasure to welcome President Bro Adams, our most recent academic partner, and one which we're tremendously excited about for the future. Bro.
Thank you, Graham, for the opportunity to be here today. I'm very excited to be able to lend some thoughts to this gathering. Now, coming at the end of a long line of speakers, it means that most of the things worth saying have been said. So I'll be brief and also share some more personal thoughts very briefly. And they range from the cosmic, perhaps, or at least the planetary, to the very specific and local. At the most general level, I have to say how excited I have been to become acquainted with the science that's happening here at Bigelow. I'm not a scientist by training, but I've learned a lot about ocean science through Graham and others who are working here at the labs, and it's enormously impressive. I also don't need to say probably to this group how important it is, and not just for this region and this state and this country, but it really does have, I think I can say confidently, planetary significance to the future of the planet and to the future of the lives and other beings of the planet in the future. The things that are being studied here have huge impact, and if we had any doubt about the challenges that we face with respect to the oceans and climate change, I think this fall's weather has persuaded even the most skeptical that we have some enormous challenges ahead. The oceans are right at the center of all of this, as we know, and so as a matter of sustainability and planetary science broadly considered, it's enormously exciting to imagine the things that will be going on here at Bigelow. Secondly, I'm enormously excited by this for the state of Maine. We underestimate, I think, and Bob Martin mentioned this earlier, the value and the importance of the knowledge industry in Maine, and it is very impressive for a state of this size in population and resources. And it includes not just the wonderful places that Bob mentioned, but also 3 of the best liberal arts colleges in the country, indeed I would say in the world. Colby, Bates, and Bowdoin. I'll let you figure out what the rank order is in my mind of those 3. But think of all of these resources that we have. And Bigelow is another jewel, I think, in this crown. And we will find ways, I'm sure, as a state and as the people of the state to exploit these wonderful educational and knowledge resources that we have going forward. Last but not least, of course, Colby is very much on my mind. We have had for decades one of the best undergraduate liberal arts environmental science programs in the country. But we always lacked one big, huge piece, especially here in Maine, and that was an ocean piece, a piece connecting us to the water here in the Gulf of Maine. We decided several years ago, through the offices of Graham and David Coit and the persuasiveness that they brought to this conversation, that we could reach out and have a genuinely interesting marine conservation program. But we knew we couldn't do it alone because doing ocean science is enormously complex and expensive. And so when David and Graham walked in the door and proposed this partnership, I was enormously excited because at last we have this very, very profound presence here on the coast with Bigelow doing the kind of thing that we could never have done alone. I was here about 4 weeks ago with Graham and others, members of our faculty, with our students who are now in the first semester of Colby's Bigelow Away at Bigelow program, which will be a 1-semester program in the fall for Colby students. We had the first 4 students here this fall. We came down here on an afternoon not too unlike this one, and we got on the boat right down here at the bottom of this hill. And we went out into the river, and we watched these students do their research work, or their gathering work, making possible the research to come later. And I was enormously proud and impressed by what they were doing. And also, I could see the future of this relationship, which is in producing, as Senator Collins mentioned, oceanographers, but not just oceanographers, producing talented, committed, dedicated people, passionate about the environment, passionate about the topic of sustainability, who will go out in the world and do wonderful things in NGOs, in governmental organizations, in private corporations, to advance the interests of sustainability and indeed the lives and values of all of us. So it's great to be in this partnership. It's great to be in this building today to see this dream come true. And it's particularly great for me to consider the future of this partnership in the coming decades. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Bro. My final speaker that I'd like to introduce is a person that I've been joined at the hip with the last 4 and a bit years, David Hoyt. David is chairman of the Bigelow Board of Trustees. He's also the founder of North Atlantic Capital based in Portland. David has all the skills that I don't have. I think I have 1 or 2 that he might need occasionally. But it has been a tremendous working partnership to get to this point where we're sitting here this afternoon. So it's a great pleasure to welcome David Hoyt.
Thank you, Graham. We'll have to chat about what you have and I don't have and vice versa. Together we're a whole. Right? It's been a great partnership. Graham and I guess. Graham and I have had a lot of fun. Bigelow's a lot like portfolio companies at North Atlantic. It's full of innovators and risk takers and people with imagination for whom barriers don't often exist. And I think that was part of Charlie Yench's character. I wish I had gotten to know Charlie and Clarice. I will share with you just a couple of experiences that I've had recently that I think, Bro, you said it when you're the last speaker. I kept ticking off all the things I was going to say. And then finally you ticked off the last thing I was going to say, which is I have nothing left to say that hasn't already been said. So you can't make this up. But I think there are a couple of things that I would like to share with you that are unique to my experience with Bigelow that are very special. One, I think, is very consistent with what I understand was Charlie Yench's personality. And not having known him, one of the things that we did at the first board meeting after Charlie passed away was just sort of stop and say, for those of you who were on the board and that knew Charlie, let's have a conversation. And to me, it was one of the most inspiring half-hour, 45-minute kind of discussions, and I'm glad I got to know Charlie through that. It was a really inspiring, he was an inspiring person. I really wish I'd had a chance to get to know him. One of the reasons for telling you that little vignette is that it says a lot about what I see as the culture of Bigelow. And Bob Gagosian, thank you for raising the sort of topic of the soft resources that are around here and that walk in and out of here every day. Because that really is, that to me is Bigelow. This is a wonderful facility. But thank you all for everything you did to make this possible, and it is only going to make Bigelow better. But the character of the folks here is unique. First of all, the senior scientists, I mean, these are people who could earn more money working for industry. They could have more predictable revenue streams in terms of paying mortgages by working for a university system. They take personal risk in working in a small, soft-funded organization like Bigelow, and I just have immense respect for what you guys do. I don't think it's probably said often enough, but not only are you world-class, but you're sticking your personal lives out there, and I want to commend you all, and I hope everybody who's not a scientist here, and let me extend that to the staff, too. I mean, everybody, this is a team. I was talking to David Fields earlier, and he came up and said, you know, this event did something unique for Bigelow. We all had to get together and put this thing together today, and it was sounded like it was a really good, positive experience for everybody. But that's kind of the attitude that exists here, and I want to raise my hand and tip my hat to all of you. You're a wonderful group, and thank you for the opportunity to work with you. So I'd like to initiate a round of applause for. Thank you. Senator Collins, I'm sorry we keep putting up these barriers to you. You'll forever be, the image of you trekking up through wet. It was a beautiful day. You did a wonderful job. You endeared yourself to everybody who was there, so thank you very much. And thanks for all your support dating back to the acquisition of this wonderful piece of property. I mean, you've been a friend for a long time, and we really appreciate it. Thank you. For everybody who came up here who contributed to the success of this facility, who was involved in providing financing, who was helping us with zoning, may have quelled some of the dogs that barked late at night because we were blasting an awful lot of rock. Just thank you all for your patience and your contribution. My final message to you is that we don't take that lightly at all as an organization. We know that what you have done for us has an implied responsibility for us to you. Certainly, some of it is pretty straightforward in terms of Rick, the bank, will pay you back with interest. The bank really did step up. When I talk about the value of a community bank as opposed to a national bank, the first has been a great partner. So I really want to thank you. So the sources of funding, the state, NSF, NIST, our donors who were critically important to us, not only looking backwards, but looking forwards. Thank you. We were going to work very hard, aren't we, Graham? You with your skills and you with mine, to fulfill our programmatic and neighborly responsibility to you. So thank you all. And with that, I'm going to ask Graham to come up, and Graham and I have a special presentation to make to a special person. Steve, Malcolm, I know you're back there somewhere. You want to come up? Steve Malcolm is a long-term trustee. Steve Malcolm was chair, is still chair. I don't know when does this committee officially end of the building committee. A lot of what happened here happened because Steve, even though he has a business to run and a family of young children to chase around and keep after, spent an awful lot of time here with Graham. I think Steve actually is the one who was fixed at your hip most of the time. On each side. On each side. Steve is a wonderful, wonderful individual, and he has committed an immense number of hours to this organization as chair of the building committee. We're going to find another job for him. We had a long talk about that last week, but Steve, we wanted to give you a very special thank you. Thank you, Steve. Nobody got to introduce you.
Nope.
So can I introduce you? My prior introductions of Graham have been listing his academic credentials and all the work that he's done globally in the world of ocean science. I'm going to limit it. I'm going to try to embarrass you in front of your father. The culture that I talked about earlier is very much Graham's. It existed here, but I think Graham has taken it to a new level. Graham's a unique leader. I found that out when Graham had some challenges, I guess, with the immigration system in our country. Senator Collins, I think you actually helped us with this. And as soon as that was made known, looking at you, Barney, because I think you were one of, I know you and Patty and Willie, I mean, the senior scientists got on the telephone and said, you guys have got to correct this. I mean, that was one of the greatest signals I think I've seen of an organization lining up behind its leader. So I wanted your father to hear that story if he hadn't heard it already. Mr. Shamil, thank you for coming all the way across the pond. Graham, as I think many of you know, was elected, and I'm not going to get this exactly right, but one of the most influential, 10 influential leaders in the state of Maine last year, about this time last year, I think. And Bigelow, thanks to Graham and the 70-odd folks that are here, despite everything that has gone on in their lives to move from McCowan Point to here, was I think number 9 out of 32 best places to work in the state of Maine this past year, and the only, I think, nonprofit organization. So I don't know how you pull that off, given everything that had to get done this year, but I just wanted you all to know that this organization is in great hands, and that the Board of Trustees recently extended Graham's contract by 5 years. Graham Schmidt.
Thank you, David. I'm the last one, so I'm standing between you and a bathroom break. Senator Collins, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for coming this afternoon. So I did a little bit of mathematics. It's 2 years, 3 months, 1 week, and 4 hours since the groundbreaking. So in that time period, we've gone from essentially some fairly undeveloped piece of coastal Maine, in fact, some might argue the best piece of property here in mid-coast Maine, to a fabulous new campus. And I echo Bob's thoughts that a campus is a good term for the synergistic opportunity to pursue fundamental research, to work with industry, to represent the people of Maine, and to educate the next generation. That is what we're trying to do. I've had the immense privilege of constructing not 1, but 2 marine laboratories. This has been outstanding, and in a moment I will pay tribute to all the folks who have enabled that to happen. But of course it has been the culmination of a vision that was inspired by Neil Rold, one of our Board of Trustees who unfortunately can't be with us today, and Sandy Sage, my predecessor. It's a lasting tribute to the late Charlie Yench and his wife Clarice. So many people ask me, especially the press that have been here today, what does Bigelow do? You know, well, I could talk about, you know, the innermost genetics of Emiliani Huxleyi. I probably don't think that is exactly what they were asking me. I think Bigelow inspires, we discover, we educate, and occasionally we frustrate in ways that are really hard to explain. How many of us actually have that opportunity, that thrill of discovery, of seeing something that had never been described or explained by any other person in the history of mankind, and it happened here in Boothbay? That's what we do. We find out things that have never, ever been known before. Our next task is to communicate that, make it relevant, find the value in that, and then go on to find the next one, and to do that over and over and over again. For those of you at the front, you can't see many people. I can see people stretching all the way there and all the way up there. You know, all of you together make this happen, and that's why it's such a privilege for me to be in front of you. I do believe passionately in the future and value of science to the welfare of society. When you take a chance to walk around immediately after having sat here for the past hour and you meet some of the inmates, you should pause and marvel at the wonders of our natural world in which we live. It is a challenge to understand and predict these, but we need to do this because of the undeniable consequence that human beings are having on this planet. Even in the most remotest recesses of the oceans, furthest away from humans, we can see the impacts. Our challenge is to understand those and to predict those for the future. So through the work of Charlie Yench and every scientist that has followed him here at the laboratory, we have striven to reveal these intimate workings of the smallest organisms right up to the largest role they play in making the planet hospitable. We look at the base of the food chain, and we try to understand whether there is the promise of keeping us healthy locked up in their genes or in the chemicals that they produce. It's those three themes: the future of the planet, the ecology, and the potential future use, that drives the vision that you see in the architecture of these three wings of this laboratory and the kind of science we do. So no one else has really mentioned the architecture in this building, and I'm going to say a few words, but before I do that, I would like to make an announcement, because we knew from the beginning that we wanted to build a laboratory that was sustainable, use the best practices and materials that were available to us, to think about energy usage in a responsible fashion. And the way of doing that is to look at the codes of the US Green Building Council, and we challenged our architects and engineers to meet the gold standard for a building. Now, those of you who know much about the LEED certification process will know that gold is a pretty high bar to reach, and particularly when you're building on a new site and you're not renovating an existing facility. Last week, the US Green Building Council awarded us platinum status, the highest. Maine has a few platinum buildings, which is fantastic. I don't think there are any other laboratories. I think we may be the only laboratory in northern New England to reach that status. Back on December the 5th, an inspirational architect died. It was Oscar Niemeyer, who created actually the capital city of Brazil. I'm going to just read something that he said. "I am not attracted to straight angles or to straight line, hard and inflexible, created by man. I am attracted to free-flowing sensual curves, the curves that I found in the mountains of my country, in the sinuousness of the rivers and the waves of the oceans. Curves make up the entire universe, the curved universe of Einstein." Well, you're sitting in a curve this afternoon. It cost a bit of money to build a curve. Those of you who know something about buildings would appreciate that. But I think what we have tried to do through this building is to really embody the spirit of Bigelow, the kind of science we do, and to speak to the innovation and uniqueness of this institution. So I'm going to, right at this point, thank the entire design and construction team. The design team was led by Dick Rollins of WBRC, with Gary Shaw of Perkins and Will. Terry Dewan of Terry Dewan Associates and Gunnar Hubbard from Thornton Tomasetti were all part of this. And they had a fantastic staff: Dan Monroe, Stephanie LaPlante, Patrick Cunningham, Andrew Goetz, Keith Smith and Mike Pulaski. Many of those are here this afternoon. They're all hiding down the back, actually. They don't do that when we're in the design team meetings. They're much more vocal than that. To implement that, we had the fantastic support of the construction manager firm. That was Consigli Construction Limited, David Thomas, and the site superintendents, Jerry Dorval and Steve McPherson. And then their team included Lindsay Dumas, Logan Ouellette, Phil Meyer, and Kevin McCosh. So one of the privileges of sort of being the project manager is to work with those people, and many of them are Mainers. I don't know too many Mainers, actually, surprisingly. I meet lots of people from away, and of course I'm from away. But when you get to do a construction job, you get to see the people who really make this state work, and I think that's been one of the personal greatest things that I've experienced over the past 2.5 years. So thank you to that entire design and construction crew. Thank you. Everybody has made mention of our funders. You know, right from the very beginning, from Senator Collins' initial work, and with NOAA, who helped to think about how we could finance the purchase of this site, through to the people of Maine, through the Maine Technology Asset Fund bond that we heard about, and then the federal agencies of NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and the National Science Foundation. The National Science Foundation Award was America Reinvestment and Recovery Act Award. So again, you're seeing the outcomes of the 2009 public financing through their provision in the second wing. So thank you to all of them. Now, federal research grants, although they continue to be our major source of financing and revenue for our research programs, and Dr. Gagosian talked to us this morning about how we navigate through the choppy waters that are ahead on that, they don't cover the full costs of research and education. We are a 501c3 charitable organization, and it's essential for us to secure the funding that meets our operational costs and remains an independent and sustainable institution. Many of you, too many for me to name this evening, make that happen. From members of the Board of Trustees and the founders of this campus, right the way through to people, our local neighbors and people in Boothbay, all of you helped to make this happen and make this institution sustainable to the future. So thank you for all the donations in the past, the present, and of course for the future that you might wish to us. Thank you. Inside of Bigelow, there's some very dedicated teams. I've pretty much spent every Tuesday from 8:30 in the morning till pretty late at night for 3 years working on this project. I have a fantastic team that works with me. Steve Malcolm, member of the Board of Trustees, who was the chairman of our building committee. But behind them, Marty Getrich, the lab manager, Willie Wilson, our project shepherd, which is a fancy name for the scientist who has to communicate with all the other scientists. You know what herding sheep are like, that's what Willie does. Jack Cook and Leslie Bird, you have been a great team to work with. Thank you very much, all of you. And then, of course, the people who've made today possible. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. I'm sure you're all aware of that. So Kimberly Reed, Tatiana Brelovskaya, Christina Betcherer, Fran Scannell, Marty, Tim Pinkham, Kim Knowlton, and Dave Clifford have all really worked like Trojans to get today ready. I didn't come here yesterday. I stayed half a mile down the road, well out of the way, not to mess with any of the organisation. You've done a great job. Valerie Augustine, who is my new assistant, taken over from Jane Gardner, and I hope Jane is here today. Both of you have done an absolutely fabulous job. Thank you to all the event organisers. Now you're wondering, is he ever going to finish? And I am going to finish. And this is a chance just for me to wax a little bit lyrical and to dig up a couple of words from someone who was much more visionary than I can aspire to. And I'm talking about Jacques Cousteau. I'm one of the Cousteau generations of watching the voyages of Calypso and seeing all the things that they did. And Jacques Cousteau often reflected on what causes one's life and career to change, and he said a couple of things, and I'm going to just quote these. And the first one is very apt, because this is just how I feel. I am not a scientist, I am rather an impresario of scientists. And that's kind of what the chief executive does now. Yes, I was a scientist, it's a great privilege to work with scientists, but the real challenge is to harness all the wonderful energy that you scientists have and to make Bigelow successful. But maybe a more suitable thought for us to close on this afternoon were some words that he said in 1986. The future is in the hands of those who explore, and from all the beauty they discover, while crossing perpetually receding frontiers, they develop for nature and for humankind an infinite love. So, on the words of Jacques Cousteau, and for all of you for coming this afternoon, thank you very much indeed. great to see so many people enjoying themselves, and some people who have arrived more recently. I hope you're getting into the Bigelow spirit in an appropriate fashion. I'm going to ask you to raise your glass to two things. Firstly, to former scientists who can't be with us, who have helped make oceanography in the United States what it is today, particularly Charlie Inch. And secondly, a toast to the future of Bigelow Laboratory for Ocean Sciences. Now, my colleague to my right, Project Shepherd, is way more articulate than I can ever be. So I'm going to turn to Willie Wilson to say a few words.
Excellent. It's really just a short toast, and it's the last time I gave a toast, everybody sort of liked the joke that I gave, that I thought I should just say it again. But I spend a lot of my time sitting through a lot of these meetings, these design team meetings again, with all these talented people, and I just have a memory of one particular meeting where they're talking about, they spent about 3/4 of an hour arguing over a particular soffit, and I think to this day I still have no idea what a soffit is. But I think we've heard so many speeches today, I'm going to keep it short, and it's I'm going to give a short toast, and then with my national dress here, I'm going to give a small, short Celtic prayer, which should be suitable for this occasion. But the toast, taking lead from Graham this afternoon, is going to be to the inmates. Some him eat and can eat, and some would eat that wanted. We him eat and we can eat, so let the Lord be thanked. Amen.
Thank you very much indeed.